welcome to today's webinar, Communicating with Each Other Through a Healthy Digital Culture. I'm John Alexander Pickens III, the Harmony SEL Program Manager, and I'm thrilled to be your host today for this exciting webinar brought to you by Harmony and Inspire at National University. We host these webinars where thought leaders and educators share best teaching practices and tools to support social-emotional learning. These presentations are the opinions and content of our guest speakers and may not necessarily be a direct representation of Harmony or Inspire. For best viewing of the webinar, it is recommended that you shut down your other browsers. Throughout today's discussion, we hope to make this a conversation among our presenters and all of you. Please use the question box on your GoToWebinar control panel to submit questions, comments, or ponderings to our guests. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and you will receive a copy of the recording within the next week. If you are watching this webinar live, you will receive a copy of the certificate of completion from GoToWebinar within 48 hours. You can also download a copy of the slide deck today under the handout tab on your GoToWebinar. I would like to share the objectives of our webinar with you. We hope today that you will hear practical strategies and conversation starters from Richard Culatta's new book, Digital for Good, Raising Kids to Thrive in the Online World. You will also learn from our LAUSD partner who will share samples of how the district has successfully incorporated healthy online student practices into their district culture, and we'll connect this topic with the lessons and activities in our recent release unit, Communicating with Each Other, in the 3rd edition of Harmony SEL. So now let's take a poll of our audience and see who's joining us today. You can click on your screen or answer in the question box. Who is in the audience today? Do we have pre-K educators, pre-K to 12 educators, administrators, out-of-school time providers, nonprofit leaders, or others? We're watching as those numbers are coming in to see who's joining us today. It's always good to know who's in our audience for our presenters so they can gauge the conversation around what our attendees are kind of looking for. So thank you for filling out or for clicking on to what role you represent in your current position. So let's see what we have. 55% pre-K to 12 educators, 7% administrators, 7% out-of-school time providers, 7% nonprofit leaders, and 24% from other fields. Well, we thank you all for completing the poll, as well as we thank you for being with us today. Now we're thrilled to introduce our presenters. First, we have Richard Culatta, the CEO of ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education. Richard brings vast experience in the education policy, teacher preparation, education technology, and innovation to his role with ITSE. As the director of the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Education Technology, Richard focused on efforts to expand connectivity to schools across the country and develop the National Education Technology Plan. Richard began his career as a high school teacher. Thank you for joining us today, Richard.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here, John. It's an honor to be part of this this series, and thanks to you and the whole team at Harmony and National University for making this this happen.
Yes, sir. We are very honored and thrilled to have you share with our audience today. We're also thrilled today to be joined by Dominic Kajiwa. Dominic is the coordinator of instructional leadership support for the LAUSD District Instructional Technology Initiative. In this role, he leads the ITI team in designing and delivering professional learning around advancement of digital citizenship, expansion of computer science, and implementation of various ed tech initiatives to serve the over 25,000 educators and leaders of LA Unified. He coordinates system-wide efforts by directly supporting school leadership teams, teacher leaders and coaches, cohorts, and pilot schools. Just last week, very impressive, he was in DC advocating on the Hill for this work and the connections of social and emotional learning. Welcome, Dominic.
Thank you, John. Good morning, Richard, and to our audience today. It's my pleasure and honor to co-present with Richard today to give you that district and instructional perspective.
Excellent. It's great to see both you guys. Great to have both of you guys here. Now, before we get started with our amazing guest speakers, I would like to ask each of you a question from one of our quick connection cards. This is a strategy that Harmony uses to help build community across the country. So as thought leaders and educators, we always pour into the lives of others to provide opportunities to enhance their daily lives. But for today, I want to change it up just a bit, and I want to ask you two this question. If you two could ask anyone to teach you something, who would you ask and what would you want to learn? Dominic, feel free to go first.
I can go first. I've been thinking about this. I would want to learn how to speak Spanish. New language, definitely I would prefer to maybe immerse in a community and learn from those who actually live and speak the language. But I've heard that Richard also speaks Spanish, so that might be also a good opportunity.
It's funny that you picked language, Dominic, because I actually have a language goal too. My goal, I want to learn to speak Chinese. I do speak Spanish as well, but I've always wanted to do that. So that's actually one of the goals that I put for something new I wanted to learn. So I guess language is a theme today here, John.
Yeah, that's the theme, and I love the connection between the two of you. And this is one of the reasons that we do the connection cards, to help our students across the country, help kids connect, and the adults that work with them as well. It's an easy tool for us to use to connect with our peers, from students to the adults. So now, without further ado, I'm very thrilled to hear their questions. But now, thank you guys for sharing. And without further ado, I would love to hear more about the power of how healthy digital communications in our student communities. So I'm going to pass the mic over to you, Richard.
All right, I'll take it from here for a minute, and then in just a bit you'll get to hear from Dominic, who's really just a fantastic education leader. I love the chance to get to collaborate with him, and we get to follow each other around a lot, since we both care deeply about this work. Welcome. I'm glad we're here today. I'm starting with this picture because it represents, I think, something that we have experienced over the last couple years, which is that technology, our relationship with technology, has fundamentally changed over the last couple years, right? As we've gone through the pandemic, as we've experienced very different circumstances in our lives for the last little bit, and so our role with technology has changed quite a bit, and I think you all would probably recognize that as well. I might need a hand making the next slide come up if you can. There we go. So here's some examples. I wish I could see you raise your hands, but I'll just imagine it. I'll just think really closely. How many of you have participated in a Zoom wedding over the last couple years, or a Zoom bar mitzvah, or a Zoom anniversary, right? A major life event that in the past only would have ever happened in person, but now is possible in virtual spaces as well. How many of you have had kids in your own family that maybe have done story time or family time, reading with a family member by Zoom? Something that was very different way of using technology. I think about tools like DoorDash and Venmo, and part of me is like, how did I ever even eat before those tools existed? Did we just forage around for food or something? I can't even remember, right? These are tools that have come to really transform our lives. My point here is just that when it comes to thinking about our relationship with technology, it has changed significantly. I'm gonna need a hand going to the next slide too. I guess it seems like it's not quite letting me control it here. What I will say is this also holds true in our classrooms and in our families. The challenge is, and some of you are wondering, is this the wrong, did he mistakenly put this picture in here? What on earth is this about, right? Unfortunately, what has happened is there is a narrative that has existed both in schools and in families that says, hey, the best thing you can do to help with technology in your kids is bury the devices in the backyard, hence this picture, right? I think you've heard that narrative, that idea of the best, just avoid technology at all costs, right? That's the best way to help your kids be healthy. And you know, it's just not true, and it is so such a strange you know, position in a world where we've seen that technology has actually become a much more important part of who we are and what we do and how we live and how we engage in the world around us. And that's not going to change, right? That's not going to shift anytime soon as we come out of the pandemic experience. Can you do the next slide for me? Thank you. I also have this, you know, I've had this experience as I've worked with kids around the country, and I have a chance to work in schools, and what I've seen is that these are kids that are amazing, creative, engaged kids, far more amazing and creative and engaged than I ever was when I was a kid. And they think about the role of technology very differently. They think about it as a tool to make an impact in the world around them. And so we need to be careful that we are actually helping and guiding and supporting that, and not changing their you know, just shading their view of technology by providing information that's not helpful. So I want to share a little more about that day. Can we go ahead and go to the next slide, please? Okay, so here are the two questions that I would like us to be asking. I think we should all be asking. One is, how can we help kids become amazing humans in a digital world, right? Not just you know, be able to use technology in some ways. It's not about using technology. We're so over focused on devices. It's about how do we help kids become amazing humans in a digital world? That's the first question. And the second one goes along with is, what's the role of parents and teachers, and others, of course, too. But for today's, you know, audience who we are here today, what's the role of parents and teachers in making that happen? All right, next slide, please. So there are two challenges that we face, and these I see these over and over again as I visit schools, as I talk to school leaders. I find these two themes when I ask, you know, how are you teaching? I often ask the question, how are you teaching digital citizenship in your school? And at one point I used to ask that question and nobody would answer. Now at least people go, oh yes, we know digital citizenship, we are teaching it. And I say, cool, how are you teaching it? And these are the two threads, these two trends that come back over and over again. The first one is that what is being taught is very negative, and the other is how we're teaching is just very narrowly focused on online safety. And let me give you two examples of this real quick. Hey, I got the slides to be able to advance. Okay, first, this is my son Benjamin, by the way. He's a pianist. He is a great little piano player. But it's interesting to think about playing the piano. And playing the piano it's a complex skill. Like playing a sport or like algebra or anything else. And you can't learn a complex skill without practice. But here's the problem. If we are negative, if all we do is say what not to do, you never have the ability to practice the skill you're trying to learn, right? You can't practice not doing something. So Benjamin, for example, you know, if he went to his piano lesson and sat down and his teacher just said, here's all the wrong notes not to play, he would never become a good pianist, because at some point you have to actually practice the notes to play in order to learn this complex skill. Well, being a member of a digital world is a complex skill. It's a complex skill like playing the piano, like learning a sport, like learning algebra. And the only way that our kids can be healthy and learn how to do it in a healthy way is if they practice doing it the right way, doing the good things, not just being told a list of what not to do. So in schools, around our kids, we have to be really careful that we don't slip into the list of don'ts, right? Don't do this, don't share your password, don't be a jerk online, don't spend too much time playing a game. Don't look at screens too long. The don'ts are not helpful. And they don't help us really create a healthy world for our kids moving forward. And so that's the first thing that we need to just watch out for, is that we need to be able to say, here's what the do's are. Digital citizenship is not about don'ts, it's about do's. The second thing, let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna need help. Can somebody get the next slide for me? Thank you. So the next one is that we're gonna talk about as being too narrow, and having and being too narrowly focused on online safety. And so let me explain this a little bit, because some people would be like, wait, online safety, how could we not focus on online safety? Yes, we do care about online safety. And the way that I illustrate this is with another picture of one of my kids. You're gonna meet my whole family by the end of this presentation. This is my daughter, Anna. She is learning how to drive. See the gray hair? Yep, learning how to drive. She's actually a very good driver. But when we get in to practice driving, the first thing we do is put our seatbelts on. It's a given, it's table stakes. We put seatbelts on before we drive. But we don't then spend the next hour talking about the seatbelt and then say, all right, that's all we need to know. We're good, right? No, we talk about, where are we going when we drive? How do we get there? Who do we go there with? What happens if something goes wrong along the way? What are the rules of the road, right? We talk about all of the other elements, not just safety, even though yes, safety is important. And I worry that in a lot of our conversations around digital citizenship, it has become overly focused on safety and just how to be safe in a virtual space. And so actually, I want to make one more comment about that before moving on. You know, safety, online safety is, I would say, an embarrassingly low bar that we have set. And it feels like it's become the goal. How do we keep kids safe? Well, look, it's a little bit, so I worked in schools. I used to be a teacher. It's a little bit like saying, we're going to go on a field trip. And our only goal of the field trip is not to have anybody get hurt on the field trip, not to have any accidents happen. Like, really? That's a pretty lame end goal to have on the field trip. That's the most we're hoping for, is just that nobody gets hurt, right? If that's the case, let's just not go on the field trip. And so I think we have to be careful with that with technology too. Yes, we want kids to be safe. Please don't misunderstand. But that is just the bare minimum. The goal isn't that. The goal is to help them be, amazing, contributing, happy, healthy, curious digital humans. And being safe is not the goal. It is the bare minimum table stakes, just like when we learn to drive. So I hope calling those two out can be helpful as we reset to have a healthier narrative when it comes to preparing kids for the future. So now let me show this. This is a series of competencies that a coalition of organizations, including LA Unified, who you'll hear from in just a minute, participated in creating. These are 5 competencies for digital citizenship. We want young people to learn to be balanced, informed, engaged, inclusive, and alert. And those are the sort of skills. You notice they're all positives. None of these are don'ts. They're all skills that we need to learn and practice. And so that's a good way to think about what this sort of broader conversation needs to look like. We don't have time today for me to dive deep into all of these, so I'm not even going to try to do that. But I am going to give you a couple examples that I think may be helpful to tee up the conversation, and we can certainly talk about more through the Q&A time afterwards. The first one that I want to talk about is this idea of being balanced. So let me go back to this for a second. So I'll start here with balance. Balance is the idea of, how do we find the right role for technology in our kids' lives? What's appropriate? What's not appropriate? The question that I often get almost always is, my kid is blank years old, how much screen time should they have? And it's a well-intended question, because it comes from recognizing that too much technology or too much of specific ideas, of specific activities may not be healthy. But using time as the limiting factor is actually a really problematic approach if we're trying to raise kids to be healthy in a digital world. And here's why. If you look at these activities, I just picked 5 different activities that kids could participate in, right? These are all kids all participating in different activities. One of them is learning Chinese, see, because that's the goal that I had, wanting to learn Chinese, so I had to work that in. One of them is learning Chinese. Another one is doing it, making a video, kind of like a dance video. Another is playing this kind of mindless game here in the middle. there are two kids on the right that look like they might be engaging with maybe a parent or a family member over a video chat. And then down below, you have a student here that's in a library and is reading. I think we can all agree that all of those activities have very different value. Some are more valuable than others, and context matters too. So sometimes certain activities might be more valuable than the other. But to paint them all with a broad brush and say these are all screen time, in a kid's mind, it eliminates the critical learning step, which is to distinguish that some activities are more valuable than other. Just because they happen to happen on a screen has very little to do with, in fact, it's the least important element in determining whether it's a good activity or not, and whether the amount of time spent on it makes sense. And if you compare this to other things, you see how ridiculous it is, right? If we had, food time, right? Instead of having dinner, we had food time, and we said, all right, our goal is to eat whatever garbage we want. We can eat Twinkies and candy bars the whole time. As long as we stop at 7 o'clock, we're good. Our food time is over. No, of course we don't want to do that, right? So it's not about time. It's about what are the activities and what are the quality of those activities. And so likewise with food, we might say, not only are we going to learn to eat some vegetables and some protein, and then of course we can have a Twinkie and a candy bar too every once in a while, but we need to keep that balance. But we're also teaching that we learn to stop eating when we feel full, not when a timer goes off. Do you see that? That's a dangerous slope to get into with kids if they are only ever learning to stop using technology when a timer goes off and not recognizing when it's time to shift to another activity. That doesn't set them up for success down the road. So the first thing we need to do is be thinking about balance and teaching that principle to young kids. Is your technology use, and not screen, don't lump all the screens together, is this particular activity in good balance with the rest of your life? Is it taking too much time and energy from other activities? And let's talk about helping build that healthy balance, not focus on time in front of a screen. I'm going to skip a couple of these things. These are some good tips that I often give, because parents will often ask, what are the right ways to have balance at home? And there's some good tips like turning off autoplay and some things like that, which are good. But I want to skip to this one because this is more applicable for schools, but also at home as well. It's important that we set the right conditions for effective technology use. I often, when I go and visit schools, I say, do you have a sort of an effective, acceptable use policy or a digital use policy? And schools will say, yes, of course I do. I say, can I see it? And I say, great. And so when I look at it, often it's a whole list of don'ts. One, I don't have a picture of it here, but one of them that I have is that I actually kept from a school is a list of 35 things not to do with technology. If you paid me $100, I don't even think I could come up with 35 things to not do with technology. And also a lot of these conditions, these guides are written in sort of nasty legal language. If thou shalt violate anything, you will be restricted and banned and violated for the rest of your career. And we're handing this to like a kindergartner, right? A first grader. That is totally inappropriate. The purpose of an acceptable use policy is not to sue a kindergartner, right? It's to be able to set the conditions for their success. And in fact, the best thing that can come out of an acceptable use policy, conditions, is to have an environment where we say, no, we are inviting you when things go wrong to come and talk to a teacher or talk to another trusted adult. That's the most important skill that we can learn. And so when you say these things, we will violate all of your violations and throw you in jail. And a kid reads that and goes, you are the last person that I'm going to come talk to when something goes wrong, because all you want to do is sue me and throw me in jail. And so the right tone for acceptable use policy should say, hey, we all make mistakes. And when something goes wrong, the first thing you need to do is come and talk to an adult and we'll help you make it right. That's the tone of an acceptable use policy. And so be thinking about that. Some great things you can do. When should you use your device? When your teacher asks you to, when it's part of a project that you're doing. Who should you interact with? Friends, family, other peers, right? And then what happens if something goes wrong? You say, here's some steps that you can take and we'll help get it right. It might mean that you might lose some privileges for a bit if you've made some bad choices, but we're not about punishing you. We are about trying to help you learn to be a responsible digital citizen. Let me go on. I'll pick maybe one more of these here. Let's go to inform, because that's such a critical one. We need to be helping our young people learn that these devices that they have are incredibly powerful tools for informing their learning and their curiosity, right? They are so powerful as a tool for informing. And there's some great tools out there that help do that. Wikipedia is one of the best tools on the planet for helping to inspire curiosity. One of the things that I hear sometimes that just makes my mind blow up is sometimes I'll hear kids say, "My teacher said we can't use Wikipedia because it's not a reliable source or an authoritative source." And I'm like, First of all, we got that comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of what Wikipedia is. If you go to Wikipedia's homepage, it will say Wikipedia is not an authoritative source. They don't claim to be an authoritative source. They are solving a different problem, and one that I actually think is a more important problem, and it's this. In the digital world, there's, and actually all parts of our life really, but it's especially true in the digital world. It's what I call the you don't know what you don't know problem. So if I want to learn something, if I'm a young person learning something in the digital world, I have to know something about that thing in order to learn about it. I have to know some key search terms, maybe some key dates, maybe some key people that were involved with an event, maybe some locations. I have to have at least a little bit of an understanding of what the topic is in order to be able to then go and do deeper learning and deeper curiosity. Wikipedia is a phenomenal way to quickly get up to speed. Yes, it might not be totally accurate. That's okay. We're not going to cite Wikipedia on our end of year, term papers. I know probably most of the people on this call are dealing with younger kids, but just, for the point, that's not what we're talking about. But it is the best jumping off point. It's the best starting point to enable kids to be curious and learn what they don't know, so then they can dive deeper and find that deeper information. So please don't ever find yourself saying, don't use Wikipedia. It is absolutely the wrong message to send. Wikipedia is a phenomenal first jumping off place. And they know it. They, even at the bottom of Wikipedia pages, they actually give you a whole list of sources to say, hey, we're not the authoritative source. Go here if you want more. But this is a great place to start. And so modeling that as teachers, hey, I don't know the answer to that. Let's together go and look that up on Wikipedia or elsewhere. Wikipedia isn't the only site to do this. I don't want to sound like it's an ad for Wikipedia. It's just great because it's free and it's easy to access. But modeling that curiosity, showing, even if you know the answer, model to your kids that you can use these devices to help find answers. That is a critical step to helping kids be successful in the virtual world. Let's see if I can go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, last part here. I only just have a couple minutes left, and then I want to hand it over to Dominic. So maybe I'll just share one, maybe two more quick thoughts, and then I'll be done. When I was doing research for the book that I wrote, Digital for Good, and it gives a lot more detail and lots more examples of how to help prepare kids to be healthy members of a digital community. But one of the things that was interesting is I would ask sometimes, do you recommend books to your kids? I'm sure if I could see your hands and I said, how many of you recommend books to the kids that you work with? All your hands would go up. And oftentimes teachers would share, hey, they have this great strategy of like finding out what the kids' interests are and then finding books that align to them so they can keep reading, especially during those transition years when they're transitioning from picture books to books that have a little bit of language, or moving from ones that have a little bit of words to sort of the pre-chapter books. Those are important transition modes, and it's important to recommend books. Then I would ask the question, how many of you recommend apps or web apps or mobile apps to kids? Silence, right? Very few responded. And so I said, with the same passion that we should be recommending books to our kids to become good readers, we should be recommending good digital activities. Because if we don't, then the only place that they get their digital activities from is, advertising or other peers. And in neither case, right, that's not where I want it's not where we want our kids to be learning, at least not the only source where we want them to be learning about digital activities from. We should help expand their digital palette in the same way that we help expand their reading palette. See if I can get it. There we go. Okay, here's my final thought. Do you remember these? I love these. Like these were my favorite activity when I was in elementary school. I'd be like, oh, do the matching thing, right? We need to think about how we are helping our kids recognize the role that technology plays in their lives. And so I'm going to do it by making one of these and see if this helps. So here we go. In this activity here, we have a device that we have a matching with other activities that are here. You can choose, right, which is most aligned, right? So pretend that you're doing this activity like we had on that worksheet. The question that I have is, what would our kids select, right? What would they choose? Would it be A, that this is mostly a device for watching videos? Would it be C, that it's mostly a gaming system? Would it be B, that it's most aligned to a tool that you use to fix something, to fix solve a problem? Would it be most aligned to D, which is a megaphone that takes your voice and expands it and helps you be able to share things that are important to you with other people that might be far away, or give that megaphone to somebody else that you think is important? I think it is critical, as we are helping kids understand the role of technology in their life in this post-COVID world, that they recognize that this is a tool where B and D are by far the most important aspects of this tool to help solve problems and to help expand their voice and their things that are important to them. And yes, of course, it can be used for A and C, but it depends on us as educators and parents, of course, but as educators, to help them understand that these are tools for curiosity building and for engaging in the world around them in really powerful ways. And if we can do that, boy, we just set our kids up for amazing success. And not only them, frankly, it sets us all up for success, because they're the ones that are going to be helping solve a lot of our world problems down the road. And they need to recognize that these tools are designed specifically to help them do that. So let me stop there, because I want to make sure we hear from Dominic, but we'll have time afterwards to talk more and answer some questions. So thank you very much.
And I definitely want to say thank you, Richard, for that energetic, informative share. One, I love your positive energy. Two, I love that last slide, because it is definitely something to think about. Is it just something we use for gaming and entertainment, or is it a tool that we use? And the reality, I think we all know the answer to that, so thank you for sharing that. But right now, we want to take some time to hear from our audience. So to the audience, what is one way you have seen healthy student digital communications in your school, district, or the organization that you work in? Please share your answers in the question box, and I'll continue to chat with Richard while you fill those out, and then we'll have Amanda answer some of those for us, share out some of those.
Sorry, John, I went away too quick. I'm still here.
Glad to have you back, Richard.
Thanks.
So, question for you, Richard. How do you recommend a teacher get started if there are not current expectations in place for healthy student digital communications in the schools and districts? And how have you seen this focus start with just one classroom, or does it need to be school-wide or district-wide?
Yeah, great question, John. So a couple of things. I'll go backwards order there. Obviously, if this can be, being effective in your use of technology is about culture, and so it's always best when it can be school or district culture. And you'll hear some examples from Dominic and some of the work that LA Unified is doing to do that. There's another school district that I also have done some great work with called La Cañada Unified also in California, and they said we're going to stop all this cyberbullying talk that we do, all this anti-cyberbullying, because it's so negative. And they said instead of talking about anti-cyberbullying, they're going to start teaching how to be good cyber friends. So they made this great shift as a school community to teach their kids how to be a good cyber friend. It was awesome. That said, I know many teachers across the country, around the world, where for whatever reason their district or their school hasn't been able to kind of figure that out yet. And so at a classroom level, they have set these conditions and had these conversations, and it's been amazingly successful. So if you can change the broader culture, do it. If you can't, lots that can happen just in the classroom. John, the other part of your question was kind of what else? Where do you start? Where's else some other information that you can get? Well, one of them, I mean, not to put a shameless plug for my book, but since the slide is right here, part of why I wrote this book was to give lots and lots of practical examples of what this should look like. At the end of each chapter, so in the book, I go through each of those 5 competencies. At the end of each chapter, I give 10 questions that are conversation starters to just have more deep conversations with kids about what type of humans they want to be in a digital world. And so certainly, you know, grab a copy of the book if you're interested in looking at more information there. But the other thing that I'll share too is the organization. I run a nonprofit organization, as John mentioned at the beginning, called ISTE. It's the International Society for Technology and Education, ISTE.org, ISTE.org. We have lots of resources there that are available to say, how can we help teach and use technology in very healthy ways with young people and older kids too. We go, you know, all the way up through college, but that's a great place, and much of our stuff is free. We do have some events. We have a great event happening in June, in about a month in New Orleans, where we'll bring together, you know, about 20,000 education innovators to talk about effective use of technology. So if you can get there, awesome. But if not, go to ISTE.org and certainly, you know, feel free to grab a copy of the book, and that will give you lots of practical ideas for getting started.
That's excellent. Thank you for all that, Richard. Amanda, do you have any comments from the audience that you would like to share?
Yes, they're starting to come in. So one example is that they're shifting that attitude from tech is dangerous to one that presents it as a tool for endless possibilities.
Yeah, I love that. Sorry, I'm just gonna jump in on that one. I love that, endless possibilities. That's right. It's shaping it as this is a curiosity navigator, right? And so much of that modeling comes from us. If we treat it that way, that's how they'll see it. I love that. That's great.
Excellent.
Anything else?
Share one other, Amanda, before we move on.
Yeah.
Well, we had a question that popped in, but we can save this towards the end. How do you share this information for all grade level teachers? But we can hold on to that thought because we're going to see some great examples from Dominic.
That's a great question, though. We should come back to that.
Okay, very good. And we'll hear a little from Dominic, and then we can address that question if it still needs to be addressed. So thank you all. Thank you to the audience for sharing. Thank you for your ideas. Thank you, Richard, for your share. And we encourage everyone to stick around at the end of the webinar. We're going to raffle off 10 of Richard's new books that you just saw a preview of and that he just spoke a little bit about, which is Digital for Good, Raising Kids to Thrive in the Online World, where you're going to read about many of these strategies that he shared today. So definitely look forward to that and hope that you will stick around for that. And we'll have 10 successful winners. So Dominic, welcome back. We would love to hear some examples of how you have implemented these healthy digital communication strategies successfully in LAUSD. So I'll pass the mic over to you now, sir.
Thanks, John. And thank you, Richard, for just kind of setting the groundwork on what it's like to have this culture of digital citizenship, healthy digital communication, not just one classroom, but also district-wide. And also, I want to thank you for helping us at ITI, LAUSD, 10 years ago when we were reframing and shifting our work towards instructional technology. So I am Dominic Kagiwa with the Instructional Technology Initiative. We are a department, a central office department for LAUSD that is charged with everything educational technology. The cool thing about us is we sit at the middle in the center of the division of instruction. So that means is our work is embedded and intersecting with all the other content areas like language arts, mathematics instruction, social emotional learning. With Harmony's work with LAUSD, all the work that we've been able to do around digital citizenship, we clearly emphasize that around what that looks like also for not just academic, but also social emotional learning. So in my role at ITI, I get to support the design and delivery of professional learning around these three key initiatives for LA Unified. And that is our work with Richard, who helped us become the first school district in the world to adopt the ISTE student standards. And now we have the full suite of the standards for the many different professional development sessions we have. Also around the expansion of computer science, knowing that we are not just looking to create students who are going to be computer scientists or programmers, but computer science as computational thinking or critical skills that is needed now and in the future. This is just something that needs to be part of our instruction for students. And lastly, our main initiative around digital citizenship, what that looks like in terms of healthy student digital communication. And marrying all of these three initiatives, that really is sort of the core of our work around how do we impact future-ready 21st century teaching, learning, and leadership, so that we have empowering leaders, innovative educators, and empowered students. So for this webinar, I want to give you some examples of our how do we operationalize everything that Richard just kind of shared with us. How does that look like in the day-to-day activities of a district, of a school, and of a classroom teacher? So on the next slide, you will see that we've been able to also define what digital citizenship looks like. And if you want to click one more slide, we use the hashtag DigCitLA to kind of signify that that is what captures all the work we do around this work. And you will see that within the definition of our digital citizenship work, it is around the practice of cultivating a positive, authentic digital footprint that can be leveraged for college and career success. And you will see that there is the aspect of digital communication, whether that's in the classroom or remotely during the pandemic, that still is happening ongoing. And what's really good about this also is that we connected with other work around the Board of Education's goals around literacy and numeracy, hence the college and career success. Richard walked us through the digital citizenship competencies of inclusive, informed, engaged, balanced, and alert. That really was beneficial and pivotal for us in the past 4 years to have been able to shift the narrative around digital citizenship. When we started in 2013 as the Common Core Technology Project, that was the work that we had was mostly just giving devices to students, to schools. But what really helped us change that was focused on professional learning for adults, and in turn look at digital citizenship not from the protective lens of you cannot do this, you cannot do that, but to the empowering lens of how are you going to leverage the tools that are available to you both at home and in the classroom to be able to use that to help you in college and career success, but also with that socio-emotional learning aspect of how do you build relationships with your peers in the classroom, and how do you also begin to collaborate with others so that maybe you solve some global and local issues, hence intersecting with the other work that we do around computer science as well. So on the next slide, you will also see that in order to create that district culture of digital citizenship or healthy digital communication, we are a district that is around 700 square miles. Within the district, we are a central office function, but the district itself is highly decentralized. We have 6 other local districts. So our work really is not just to put something out there that is a one-size-fits-all mandate, but approach it in a way that we are all learners in this digital space, in this work. So our bread and butter at ITI is to provide professional learning for adults. And I'm going to walk you through some examples of them. I'm not going to explain every single one of them. In fact, I'll just share some links that you can feel free to explore at the end of this. But definitely as executive leaders, superintendents, all the way to administrators of instruction, principals, we want them to model and inspire teachers and then students to how do you actually become informed, to become alert and balanced. And so we put together different professional learning sessions in order for them to actually engage in that work and learn for themselves first before they even get others to learn about this. So we have some examples like the Digital Citizenship Roadshow, where we take this work to the many different corners of LA County and basically just kind of give them different examples of where teachers from different local contexts can start from. If you're a teacher who have never known about this, maybe all you need to know is how do you start incorporating these digital competencies in your instruction. There's also digital presence with purpose. That picture you see on the right, that is an example of a professional learning session that we've been able to curate and put together, because we want to involve our education leaders to also be on social media platforms like Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, not because it's something to be scared about, but because it's a way to share your learning, share your practice, and also collaborate with others who are doing this work. Most recently, we've also been able to do some work around policy, and advocacy. So our acceptable use policy from 5 years ago, we've transitioned that and turned that into a more positive word, which is responsible use policy, and help guidance around social media policy for students, for adults, and for families. We work with many different partners, Common Sense being one of them, helping schools and local districts or communities of schools also become these model schools for how does this look like in instruction, and how do you get an entire school community to be part of that culture. So on the next slide, I'll kind of transition from the leadership to all educators. There was a question earlier, is how do you even begin to do it, even if you're just one teacher who just wants to have this culture in your classroom? And that's always where we start, right? With 25,000 educators, it is difficult to kind of just get this done throughout the entire district. So we offer our PD so that there's an opportunity for individual educators to be able to come in throughout the school year to learn one thing around it. Maybe it's a 21st century learning foundations that has digital citizenship, the digital competencies embedded in them, or unpacking the ISTE standard digital citizen. Or during the pandemic, we serve around 14,000 educators through our module certification and looking at digital citizenship competencies, intersecting with socio-emotional learning KSEL framework, and also the work that our many different departments within LAUSD are doing regarding growth mindset, self-efficacy, and relationships with others. And the good thing about this is not only are we doing this in one modality, because of the pandemic, we've been able to also reach more educators by developing asynchronous and self-paced courses via our learning management system, where teachers can, throughout the month, complete some certifications that might include some Common Sense certification for themselves, or get other from your team or from your school site to be able to do that as well. And these two pictures are just some examples of those content that we create internally from scratch in order to take whatever it is that Richard just talked about. We design professional learning. How do you learn this for yourself? How do you get other adults to learn it? But ultimately, how do you then apply it to your own context? You're a classroom teacher. We walk you through how do you embed this in a content area lesson that you're working on. If you're a principal or administrator, how do you then create a professional learning plan for your staff to be able to also learn what you just learned? And then most excited about this next part is also how do we bring digital citizenship for students? I want to show you a video that is going to capture what this looks like, how all of this professional learning for adults, what do they look like when translated for students? So let's play the video, Amanda.
Hi, my name is Adrian Rendon. I like to do art and I actually love swimming. That's one of my favorite hobbies. And as a kid, you know, everybody loves anime, so I'm one of those anime kids. There are two definitions of superheroes. Number one, someone who has superpowers and saves the city with those powers. Number two, someone who is brave, willing to risk their lives, kind-hearted, and really smart and trustworthy. A good digital citizen is when someone is respectful to others on the internet and when they use it wisely. They don't share private information about themselves or anyone else. Digital citizenship superpowers are when you have the ability to be safe, responsible, and respectful. There are many ways to be a super digital citizen online. For example, when wanting to share a picture with others that is not your own, ask for permission first. My digital footprint matters to me because it records what I do online and my past information that I have posted. It also saves sites I have visited in the past. Therefore, if I post something about my location, then it will save to my digital footprint. My privacy is important to me. I can use my online presence for good in my community by being positive online. If someone is being negative to someone else, you can confront the person that is giving negative feedback. You can also post important information online so that it can help people. Being a responsible digital citizen means that you know what information to share and what information not to share. It also means using it respectfully, so if you see a video or a picture that someone else posts, don't say something negative.
All right, so that is a living example. That's actually a byproduct of everything I just kind of walk you through, how that professional learning partnership with different organizations. This one, Nearpod, developed some lessons throughout the month of October during the Digital Citizenship Week, and then continuing the work with bringing this to families as well as the broader education community. John earlier talked about us advocating on the Hill for policies and legislation around cybersecurity. What do we do in order to provide professional learning teachers so that this does not just become some work that needs to be done outside of the classroom or education, but also what is our role as educators to guide our students in this. And so my last slide would be just to kind of share some examples that you are able to see through by scanning this QR code that will take you to our website that has all of these resources. When you get a PDF copy of the slide deck as well, please feel free to explore all of this to learn more about our DigCitLA efforts. Thank you, Amanda. And I guess that ends my part of what that looks like for LAUSD.
Thank you for that, Dominic, but don't go away too quick. I want to ask a question of our audience. So from the audience, we love the ideas that Dominic shared. We love Dominic's energy. I love that video because I love empowering students to be able to share and to educate their fellow students. But from the audience, I would like to ask, what is one way you plan to commit to healthy digital student communications in your district? We'll follow that same procedure. Please answer in the chat box, and I'll have Amanda call a few of those out as we wait. And while you guys are sharing, Dominic, can you share how you have supported a district-wide implementation of these strategies? We know it's not easy, especially in a super large district like LAUSD. And what kind of impact have you seen district-wide? And feel free to share how it ties into your recent advocacy work out in DC.
Absolutely. For us would be to take this like to a district like LAUSD, right? So we need to create those innovation zones or pockets where we can start the work. We have what we call practitioner schools or pilot schools, and that is really where you see the work in action. And I have a video that I will also share in the link or in a follow-up email that where you will get to see that the impact needs to get trickled down all the way to the student. While all of these are central office work, sometimes it's difficult for us to be able to see is like, what does that actually look like when done by students? And so for me, that has always been what I would always point to is, where do I see this impact when I go to school sites? Visiting school sites, being able to be there with classroom teachers and being able to always have that instructional lens to it and not just at the very high level of a district implementation.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that, Dominic. Amanda, anything you want to share out from our audience?
Well, our audience is still thinking about their next steps, but we did have a good question that we could go ahead and ask Dominic while he's here. Mitch, this is from one of our audience members. Mitch Resnick, the father of MIT Scratch, says a little programming goes a long way. What are your thoughts regarding the value of student exposure to computer science to enhance what some call algorithmic awareness? Do you see this for students not pursuing computer science per se?
We actually have worked with Dr. Resnick. He's come and done work with us with our EdTech coaches and have keynoted our signature events, our conferences, and not so much just specific to algorithmic thinking or even computer science, but just the idea of 4 Ps. That's what he stands for, is the passions, peers, projects, and play. Is how are you able to get students to be able to engage in this regardless if, again, they're going to go into computer science in college or in career, but it's just something that is going to also make them be able to have those problem-solving skills at this age. And so we approach computer science not because we're thinking of having all of our students become computer scientists in the future, but more on the equity lens, a social justice lens, that we want kids who look like me or a minority or someone as diverse as LAUSD to be represented in creating those algorithms, those apps, those technology applications in the future.
Great, and we had a few other thoughts that have come through that next steps. Some folks are using the digital competency, and someone else said they're interested in learning how to teach healthy digital student communication, especially in the classes that are available for educators. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Amanda. So really quickly, we're going to make a quick connection between what we do at Harmony. Obviously, most of you know, and those of you who don't know, Harmony is a fully digital program through our online learning portal. And for the students, we also have the Harmony app, Harmony SEL app. So please inform your students that we have the app so they can utilize that. And for you, our materials are available at onlineharmonysel.org. You can access all of our materials, and this is for educators here in the States and worldwide for that matter. What you'll notice on the portal, we have our new Unit 3 that's been released. Obviously, Harmony is about building those healthy relationships, and those are for the online world and for our in-person world as well. We want to make sure that we make the connection to students being great citizens of the digital world, as we spoke about today. And we do that through teaching them those communication skills that we address in Unit 4 of our refreshed 3rd edition that you see here in front of you. Also available is Unit 4 of our new refreshed edition. So you can see that on the portal as well. Now I want to jump really quickly to our next webinar coming up. The next webinar that we have coming up is going to be what you see here on the screen, Being Your Best Self, which is our Unit 1. And that's going to be on June 2nd, 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific time, 4 to 5 Eastern time. So hopefully you can join us for that. We also we're going to give away 10 of Dominic's books. And so in the interest of time, we'll just pick those names and send them out. We'll email the winners of those. So thank you to Dominic for presenting his book to us to give that. And thank you again to both Dominic and Richard, or thank you to Richard for giving us the book. Thank you to Richard and Dominic for both being here today, for sharing. Their words were truly inspiring. So definitely thank you for that. Here is all of our contact information. If you have deeper questions that you want to ask, if you want to engage with our presenters, or if you have a question for me specific to Harmony or to Inspire, feel free to reach out to us. We'll leave this information here for just a moment so you can see that information. If you want to take a picture of the slide, if you want to write down information, you have the option to do either of those. And we again appreciate the audience coming in. We know for a lot of us, it's getting close to the end of the school year. We know that you're extremely busy, so we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. And we hope that you'll come back in 2 weeks for our next webinar, and you'll be a part of that as well. As we close out, once this webinar comes to a close, we do launch a survey. It's very short, and we greatly appreciate you participating in the survey. We do read the feedback. We read everything that people share, and it allows us the opportunity to adjust our webinars to make sure that we're giving you what you need. As we said about our 3rd edition, educators spoke, all of you spoke, and we listen, and we do the same thing with regard to our webinars. So for that, again, I thank you for joining us. I thank our amazing panelists, Richard and Dominic. I thank Amanda and Amy on the back end. You don't get to see them, but they keep the train on the track. They keep things going. I appreciate their efforts. And I thank you all for being part of our webinar today, and look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.
Thank you all.